Hi, I'm Jake Smith, the White Buffalo, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas, and welcome to episode number 217 of your favorite podcast, Walking the Floor. This is Chris Shiflett coming to you live-ish from the Walking the Floor bunker. Oh boy, do I have a busy week. I'm trying to jam this out and grind this out, get this posted before I leave today. This is Wednesday when I'm recording it, but I got to fly out to Nashville because I get to open up for Blackberry Smoke at the Ryman this Friday, February 10th, which is very, very exciting. And so I think the day that I'm posting this will be the day that that's happening. So in order to pull that off, I'm sitting here at my studio packing Pelican boxes and restringing guitars and, printing set lists and, doing all that fun stuff to get ready to come out to Nashville and play an epic show, man. I cannot wait. Lots of friends out there that I haven't seen in a long time, and I've been texting people all week. Hopefully get to jam in lots of coffees and meals and hang time with my couple days out there. Anyway, other big news, I need your help. Can you go to my website, chrisshiflettmusic.com, and pre-save my new single, Black Top, White Lines? It's coming out February 15th. We need you to get on there, pre-save it to your favorite DSP, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever it is, and trick that old nasty algorithm into liking it and doing nice things on my behalf. So we need your participation, people. Come on, let's do it. Pre-save Black Top, White Lines. And while you're there, if you feel like signing up for Shifty's Tackle Shop, there's a link on the website to do that too, and that way I can send you lots of emails. I can just bother you with emails trying to sell you a bunch of shit you don't need, like t-shirts and concert tickets and signed vinyl and God knows what else. We'll be hitting you up every time something new happens. We will let you know first from Shifty's Tackle Shop, and if you sign up right now, you actually get a brand new unreleased song from my upcoming record. It's called Where'd Everybody Go, and there's a lot of guitar riffage on it, so that's just for you, for being such a nice fan person. Other big news for me this week, my UK-Ireland run of shows in March has officially sold out every single darn show. So thank you, people of Glasgow and Dublin and all the shows in England, for making it so damn exciting. I can't tell you, there's nothing better when you're like in a band than knowing you got sold out shows and you just don't have to think about stressing about, I hope people come. So thank you. We are very excited and we're going to blow them out, man. That's going to be a real hoot. Cannot wait. All right, let's move it on over to our buddies at Zounds.com, the home of where you need to get all your music gear supplies on the internet. Because did you know that they have free shipping on every order at Zounds.com? No exceptions and no exclusions. Even crazy heavy items like tube amps, 8x10s, giant synth boards, subs, drum kits, all the hardware and larger format mixing consoles ship free from one of their 3 strategically located warehouses all over the United States to get your gear faster than anybody else. That's right, Zounds.com. Whew, that was a mouthful. All right, let's get on over to the interview. All right, this week I had the pleasure of talking to Jake Smith, a.k.a. the White Buffalo. If you don't know Jake's music, he's got a bunch of records out there, been making records for a long time, and he has a fantastic new one called Year of the Dark Horse that came out, I think, last November, that he made out in Nashville with legendary producer Jay Joyce, who has also worked with like Eric Church and Brothers Osborne and Ashley McBride and folks like that. When I was getting ready to interview Jake, I was thinking to myself, how have I never crossed paths with this dude? He's a surfer, kind of came to fame by getting his music into surf movies like Shelter, and has been embraced in the surf world over the years. And he's a road dog, man. The dude tours a lot. He's built his fan base the old-fashioned way by taking it to the people. So hopefully we get to cross paths out there soon. I hope I get in the water with him soon too. This is Jake Smith, the White Buffalo, on Walking the Floor. I was thinking about you, and I feel like the first time I ever heard of you or heard your music was in a surf movie, but I couldn't remember which one. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, that was like my first introduction kind of into a larger scale of the world, which is still a very small portion of the surfing video watching community. But yeah, it could have been Shelter was like one of the first things that ever came out. Which was like
oh, that's got to be it for sure. Because yeah, I watched that movie over and over. Yeah, Chris
Malloy, that one. But I did a couple. That was a lot of my first kind of licenses, but not even really licenses, but kind of writing to film or people using my songs was in surf films.
Interesting. Like what's your connection to surfing? Do you surf?
I do. I mean, I grew up surfing. I grew up in Huntington Beach. So it's kind of a thing there.
It's kind of a thing there.
Yeah.
I guess I mistakenly thought you were a Bay Area guy.
No, I mean, I'm born in Oregon, but grew up in Huntington Beach from 1.5 to maybe 20. Then went to school in the East Bay. And then spent the time in San Francisco and then made my way back down to Southern California. But been in California the majority of my life, other than my not knowing baby years, toddler years.
Yeah. All right. Well, where do you live now? Like, where do you surf now?
I mean, God, I don't really surf that much anymore. It's pretty shameful. It's such a feel-good thing. I know. And I live in Sherman Oaks, so I'm not terribly far. Yeah. I mean, it's a journey, but Topanga is my most local break that I go to, which I love that. Right, I kind of peel off to the right, just to not deal with the people on the point, But
yeah. Like you sit a little deep, kind of in that little deep section.
Yeah.
You
surf?
It's funny. I do, yeah, and I live pretty close to Topanga. That's like the closest break to me that's any good. Because I live in the Palisades, but
oh, nice.
But I never wind up surfing there because I always just go a little deeper up into Malibu because I always don't want to deal with the crowd because it's such a congested one little takeoff.
Tighter.
But when I go
a little north off.
Yeah, exactly. No, I do the exact same thing, and I just take the closeouts and hope for the best.
Yeah, hope for a reform. I'm too old for that shit now to like battle it. Posture.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. What was like? What was your experience with that when you had some movie, like a movie like Shelter, like everybody that was into surfing was watching that movie? Did you feel an impact? I guess that was pretty early in your
that was
career,
the beginning. At that time in my life, I was living in San Francisco, like waiting tables, and I would send cassette tapes that I would record on like my brother's Pioneer freaking dual cassette, and then re-record one and send them to like buddies. And there was a friend that was in the surf industry that was like a rep, that rep for like Nixon and whatever, a bunch of different companies. And that's kind of how it started circulating in that world.
So did you immediately develop a fan base like in like California and Florida and Hawaii and Australia and all the places with like strong surf culture?
I mean, I don't know how far reaching that is. It definitely... I remember they asked me to come down and play the premiere. So Chris Malloy kind of called me out of nowhere and was like, hey, we want to use one of your songs. And I was like, I don't have anything released. It's only these cassette tapes that are going from cassette to cassette and people burning these 10, 20 song things of me just playing acoustic guitar and singing. Somehow it gets in his hands and he calls me out of the blue asking if he can use one of my songs for his, and that was like right transitional also even in the surf industry of things that were kind of arty and cool and other than like just airs and punk music.
Right.
So it was kind of a transition in that way. But yeah, I went down to the premiere and like people knew other songs other of mine that weren't in the movie that had never been released, only like these. And that was actually a decision for me to move to Southern California. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was like, there really wasn't much going on for me up there. And I was like, what's going on? Like people knew multiple songs, were singing along to songs that and you probably know as well as I, even if you've never played the song ever, you'll see people mouthing the words just because people are ridiculous some of the time.
Like the second time you get to the chorus, they're just kind of like,
or even if they don't know it, some people will be like, will mouth things. What are you? No one's ever heard this song except me. There's no way you know this. And I don't think I'm that, obvious.
And that would have been a little before like social media and stuff, right? So like, how was that? How were those songs getting? If you only had the song in Shelter, and like, how was that happening? Did people passing cassettes?
No, it was just, it was cassette to cassette, and people would burn, I guess, or whatever, duplicate a cassette and give it to somebody else. And it just kind of created this super organic fan base where you actually had to work pretty hard to find it. But yeah, that was my first thing. And I don't know if I know, I mean, I initially would play surf related things. I mean, I'd play and, I would do an opening. I do sing the national anthem at a surf contest or and it led to other kind of stuff in surf films. There was a couple, this guy, Jason Baffett, did this movie called Single Fin Yellow and One California Day. That both like actually really cool and well done. That he asked me to do some stuff for that too. So,
wait, what years were you in San Francisco?
I was there from maybe 98 to 2002, maybe.
Okay. I was there from 95. I was there in 95 to the beginning of 2000. So we had a little overlap. I lived in the Western Addition. Like, where were you hanging out?
That's where I lived.
No shit. Okay, this is so trippy because I was rummaging around on the internet, getting questions together and doing, deep dive intensive research on you. I stumbled across the your In the Garage YouTube show. And I watched a couple of them. I was like, this motherfucker is my people. Like, how do I not know this dude? Like, this guy is totally my people. Like, and now we're in the same place at the same time. That's fucking crazy.
That's insane. Where did you live? I was like Fulton and what is that street? Masonic? Like right by USF I lived.
Dude, I was right there. Do you remember the old Plaza Foods?
Yes.
That complex that had like a supermarket and a deli. And
I used to go across the street to the Fulton bar.
Yes. Dude, I was right there. I lived in
Two-story.
Yeah, I was like Fulton and McAllister or something. I was like, I lived in like a few different places.
No, it was McAllister. I think I'm thinking, yeah.
Dude,
that's wow. Well, we were neighbors. We didn't even know it.
Well, there you go. Well, we might have been like, knocking them back at a bar one night and in each other's company and don't remember.
Could be. Those blurry years.
Exactly. So like with In the Garage, I was watching that. I really liked it. I just watched a couple of them. I didn't know if that was like something that you were going to continue doing. And at first, when I started watching, I was like, oh, okay, he must have started doing this during COVID. But then I found one that was like way before COVID. So you must have been well set for when COVID hit for like all the, broadcasting from your garage. Like, how did that come about?
The format is so ridiculously simple. I mean, it's just the same. It's just a phone out, and I would just roll into the garage, talk some shit, drink a beer, play a song. Really is the whole thing. But I started doing it, years ago. But I only had a few episodes, and it wasn't until COVID hit that I was diligent about doing it every 2 weeks or something like that and putting one out. So there was definitely more of a schedule. And in between those two periods, I was basically garageless. So I didn't have, I almost lived I was in like my divorce transitional years. And so I was basically living in a garage, which was maybe too sad to broadcast.
My friend's garage. You could have just amended the name.
But I haven't done one for like a year maybe. And so it's like, man, but I got to get back into it. So I moved again. And I don't have the same format or the same style of garage. It is detached, so there still but the entrance is it was such a part of the show, was just think of some creative, silly, stupid way to either roll into the garage or crash on a skateboard or, do something silly or come in with fireworks or something for kind of some extravagant entrance, which I'm struggling on. Thinking of how to do it now that I have to come in through a door, which I could do. I just got to figure it out. But they're fun. Like, you really got to get it.
You just need to build a like movie set garage that's like exactly like the one that used to be in with the roll door and put the Yeti cooler and the surfboards up in the racks. And I love the window into your personal life and stuff. Like it didn't look staged, you know.
No, it wasn't. And you could see it even at like the beginning, where I kind of moved into that place pretty freshly during COVID, and then you could see it slowly develop. And there's more boards, and there's more like just tchotchkes and bullshit everywhere, and and it just starts to really I start to fill it out a little bit,
Yeah. Well, let's get into your backstory a little bit. Like you mentioned, you grew up in Huntington Beach, but I always like to do a little just a little run through of people's personal history. Like, what got you into music? Was it your family? What was your situation?
Yeah, it was later. I mean, I didn't pick up a guitar till I was 18, 19 years old. Didn't come from a musical family. Like listened to country music growing up in Southern California, which is kind of a bit of an oddity. That was my parents' choice, and we would go to country music concerts all the time. And it was really a friend in high school, maybe a senior year in high school, where his dad would sit around. We would go and drink beers at his house, and his dad would like play John Prine songs and Bob Dylan songs, and just little 3-chord ditties, and it kind of inspired me to get a guitar. John Bulow, Sam Bulow is his name. And from there, I just started writing songs kind of immediately. I didn't really learn people's songs. Didn't know I could sing really, or even had any kind of a voice or anything to say really even. But immediately kind of started writing these kind of dark, twisted tales that were often in kind of a narrative style. That's kind of the beginning of it.
I mean, so if your parents were listening to country music and taking you to country music concerts, I mean, that must have seeped in there. But like, what were you listening to? What did you gravitate to?
That was it. I mean, I was into it. I was like, oh, this is my jam. These are my jams. Like, that's what I was listening to, and it wasn't until high school really where I started getting introduced to other things, which was like punk rock, and I had punk and hardcore and some metal, which I kind of totally abandoned. Country, I was still there, but it wasn't. If it was on the radio, if it was, those are the teen angst years, like where society's against you, and if it's on the radio, it's terrible,
Right.
And then when I got a guitar, I kind of started getting into singer-songwriters and people like Dylan and Leonard Cohen and Elliott Smith, and people that were really inspiring, and also saw the relationship between some of that old country, which was actually during that 90s, 80s, early country, is very heartfelt, very narrative songwriting. And then you could see that in the later singer-songwriters that I started listening to as well. Were very similar. But yeah, it took, there's an arc of listening. I was even thinking about doing conceptual album about like, I'll call it like a life in music, and the idea of like start with country, write 3 country songs, and then go write 3 aggressive, more punk songs, and then write 3 more singer-songwriter stripped down songs. And then kind of where I'm at now is kind of whatever, could be anything, synthesizer or what, just kind of have that whole idea of a life in music, of the arc of both listening and playing, to kind of try to wrap it up in one package.
It's interesting because so many people, myself included, like start out in heavy music or punk rock or metal or whatever, and find their way to country music, find their way to singer-songwriter. But it's interesting that you eventually got there, but you're starting.
No, I pulled back on almost to a fault. I remember there was a point about the same time as I got a guitar, but a little bit. I started opening up a little bit, but was listening to like Agnostic Front, and not that that's not a great band, but stuff that was just like had no melody, was just kind of barking and just like crunch, and really had no, it was just kind of angry. It was more of a feel, and I was like, what am I listening to? And it was just going deeper and deeper to where I was running out of stuff that wasn't on the radio or wasn't popular, that people didn't know. And then I just had an epiphany, kind of like, well, maybe stuff that's on the radio sometimes is people like it because it's good, and it's on the radio because it's got a more general, universal appeal to it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think I just figured that out like last week.
I was like, wow, Elton John, isn't that way?
People aren't drawn to you when you're a fucking bummer. I don't know.
Right.
A little bit. You can be a little bit, but not all the time.
Right. No, I'm slowly realizing that myself, that, that they're love songs, and there's more to life than just this kind of dark layer of murder and destruction and, heartbreak.
Yeah. So when did you start like performing out? Did you start playing in bands? Did you do that sort of normal thing? Or were you always just the White Buffalo? Was that your starting point? Or did you have earlier stuff?
That came, the very first band, which I was like in playing my songs at a friend's apartment, and there was a couple buddies or a couple guys that lived a couple doors down. One was a drummer, one was a bass player. And they heard me from 3 apartments over, feeling my feelings. And we're like, what is going on over there? And immediately kind of recruited me. And we started a band called Living Room. And but I had been playing guitar I'm still a super primitive guitar player, but I've been playing for 6 months, maybe. And then we just started. I had, 7, 8 songs written. And so we just started playing live in like tiny, just little bars and, but then it wasn't until quite a bit later where I started kind of performing under the moniker of the White Buffalo. And I did that solo, and but it's been a long, slow burn, climb.
So you didn't have any like early brushes with the music business or like major label record deal that went awry with your early band, none of that stuff? Because that's like seems to be a pretty common theme in with solo artists,
I never got hurt or crushed by it or helped either, like even some of the positive things where sometimes I look back and I'll be like, maybe I should have tried to been more active doing that. But I released my first couple things solo, once they were recorded, I would just put them out and print CDs. And once streaming was available, put them right up. It was with no label, with no anything, very independently rolled out, but not calculatedly rolled out. No setup, no marketing, no PR, no, I wouldn't even have headshots or anything,
Right.
So, no. But I think it's been a gift in some ways of not having people telling me what to do. Always was writing from a pure place, and a place where it was touching, or at least affecting me emotionally or mentally. To not have to bend to somebody going like, no, you're a country artist, or you're this, or you need to write songs. There was never any direction other than my own, whatever I wanted to do.
So at what point in putting out your records did it become, the music business came calling? Like, you're on a label now, right? I think we're label mates, Snake Farm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been with them now?
Technically not yet, because my record hasn't come out, but just very recently. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I got some music coming soon.
When
did that part come into it? Like, dealing with labels and managers and booking agents and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I had some managers prior to that. I went through a couple in order to find, who I'm with now, and. Managing stuff, I think, it's hard to, especially when you're a starting manager, to really have the know-how and the connections to be able to do things. But I didn't sign with a label till I can't put a year on it, probably 96 or 7 or something. I'm not sure when my first album. So I put out, a full length and a couple EPs. So I probably had 20, 25 songs out in the universe. But over a period of time, but it wasn't until probably 10, 15 years ago maybe that I started, probably 10 years ago. What would that be? What is it, 2023? Jesus Christ, 2023. I can't believe that. Yeah, so 2013 would have been 10 years ago. So yeah, prior to that. So Yeah, I don't know. Shit, I'm just right. I'm
I
not
mean,
good with it, obviously.
like, up to that point.
Now it's been like 10 or 15 years, but even in that respect, I still had the guidance. It was always kind of, I was still free to create and write whatever I wanted. And I always came to the table with with the songs I had. But then signed with Unison Music and made 3 or 4 records with them. And then jumped over to a label called Earache, which is started out as kind of a heavy death metal kind of label and transitioned in these later years to some more kind of organic, rootsier things. And then been with Snake Farm for the last couple albums.
Yeah, right. And like before all that, were you just like road dogging it, like building a fan base, touring?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was. I did get the opportunity to support some people. I supported another surfer, actually, who one of my earlier managers, maybe the second manager I ever had, was managing Donovan Frankenreiter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he had just kind of come off of the Jack Johnson high of his career. Right. So he was playing some decent rooms. But even at that point, I was still performing solo acoustic. You know, I'd go out with 2 Pabst Blue Ribbons and people would think I was a roadie setting somebody's guitar up, you know, and then would just stay up there and you know, play a 45-minute set.
Why is that roadie sound checking the mic for so long?
Right? Enough of him, right? Let's get on to but no, I mean, it definitely opened up a lot of things. But I was playing, I mean, I was stuck in little, you know, corners of dive bars and played the sushi bar in Seal Beach, like every, you know, for years, probably a couple years where I was really trying to get established. But yeah, it takes, you know, it's been a slow go.
Yeah. It's a lifetime for sure. So how did you connect with Jay Joyce? I love his production. Let's talk about your new record, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Jay, so this was during COVID when we were talking about recording a new album. And during COVID, got a synthesizer, which I have no idea what I'm doing with. So I got like a Roland something that has all these different sounds on it. And just started kind of writing. And then I had the idea like, I want to have an album that bleeds into the next one and I started writing on it. So both melodically, vocally, I could just kind of find where I was going. And then I wasn't stuck in the trappings of guitar playing, which I'm sure you can relate to. At some point you go like, oh man, I'm going to go to the A minor again or whatever. Songwriting, it's
that's the cool thing about writing on other instruments. You can do the same old tired chord progressions and they feel fucking brand new.
So absolutely. I mean, it's really amazing. Right. And then I would go back and kind of transpose it to guitar and I'd be like, oh, it's the same thing, or it's almost the same thing, but I just added 2 more little lift things or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically we interviewed a bunch of different producers. We had a couple at Snake Farm put us together because I think Eric Church is on Snake Farm as well, at least in the UK. So
Brothers Osborne too, maybe, I think.
Yeah. So Jay's worked with them, so they have a relationship with them. So basically the label set me up with a bunch of different producer Zoom meetings, and Jay was the most elusive and couldn't really lock him down to an interview, like a Zoom thing. He like just wasn't having it. And then I went to Nashville right when stuff opened up and played a show. He was supposed to come, he didn't come. And I was like, okay, well maybe. And then I read some interview about him and he was kind of like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing in this country world. Like I'm more of, you know, he's from Cleveland. He's not a southern man, and done a lot. I don't know if you did a album with Fiddler. You know the band Fiddler?
I know the name. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, they're more kind of aggressive. It's kind of punk, kind of melodic punks, some kind of little heavier stuff, but really pretty amazing band. He did an album for them too. But finally got a hold of him when I was in Nashville. He came out. We did something for Americana Fest or something, and he came out, and then I met with him and basically pitched him the idea of the concept of the album, wanting every song to bleed into the next, have it really be kind of a headphones album. And after we didn't really talk even about what I wanted to do. We just kind of hung out and had coffee, and then finally he asked me what I was up to and what I thought I wanted to do for this next album, and I just kind of sold him on the idea, and I was like, you're definitely out of our budget, I was like, and he's like, well, when can you be ready? And I was like, I'm ready. And he's like, okay, let's do it. Let's go. And I was like, I just totally wasn't ready. I had like three songs complete, and then just tiny little fragments of songs for the rest of it. But I did have this whole entire concept that I wanted to write this narrative of an entire year and kind of how the seasons affect people's minds and relationships, and how and kind of the ups and downs, and knew I wanted to bring a relationship and a love story into it somehow, and then have it fall apart kind of in the fall, and have all these kind of larger themes. That's always what I don't know if I try to do it, but it's what I do is have these smaller human stories, or very kind of personal stories, or fantastically personal stories, but then have these much larger themes that come from them. So stuff that you can think about, but that people can also, put their hearts into it too. They can feel it and personalize it for themselves, and also have these kind of grander ideas behind them.
I mean, if you had 3 finished songs going into it, like, what was that like for you on day 4? When you, dude, I was, you know what I mean? And are you comfortable with that sort of pressure of like, I have to write the lyrics, the melody, the whole thing, like now?
Yeah,
and the whole room's looking at me.
I'm good at that. That's like part of my pressure as a friend to my songwriting, for sure. And like a deadline is good. And even though I knew what the deadline was, just life got in the way right before. I was like, just procrastinating. I was like, oh, I got a week. I'll just bang this out, And then when I got there, we was lucky because we did it in East Asheville at Neon Cross, which is his studio, which is an old converted church. But it was my first destination album, where I didn't do it where I would basically commute from my house every day. It was the first time that I was really immersed in the process and in the writing process, which I don't know if I could have done it otherwise. Because lyrically, I would be all day, all night, just walking around with my headphones or my pad of paper and my phone, writing stuff, putting voice notes in order to try to get everything to where it could be, or the best it could be. But yeah, it was necessary for that process and for my procrastination to get me there,
I mean, for a guy like Jay Joyce, who, like, I know he's sort of known as like a bit of an outsider in the Nashville world, but he does do these big, huge hit records,
oh, yeah.
Eric Church and stuff like that. Do you think that that's like part of the allure for him, or maybe the inspiration for him to work with an artist like you? Is he knows they're not in there trying to record, you're not in there trying to record 10 songs that are going to be hits on mainstream country radio, and that maybe he can get freaky in a way that he can't on those other projects?
I mean, he was a huge part of this record. I mean, I've never done something so sonically lush with so many layers, and he played a bunch of stuff on it. A lot of the stuff that are the intro, outro connections to different songs is him helping to develop those things, where he'll be like, okay, just go like this, just play this chord, play this. And then he would flush it all out. So he was super instrumental, both playing instruments as well as production wise. I mean, he was the hardest producer I've ever worked with, though, too.
I've heard that about him from I think John Osborne said that about when John was tracking guitar solos or something, that he was really hard on him.
I mean, it's like almost not like a father, but like a disappointed father kind of at the moment. You're like, oh God. I mean, the question you asked earlier though too is like, what do you do on day 4 when you have 3? But we did them in order. So I wanted that, which helped kind of the songwriting process, because I wanted this full arc and this full narrative. So we started with song 1. Next day we do song 2. Next day we did it in 12 songs in 11 days. And it would just be this whirlwind of creation and experimentation where you would know, even when at the end of the day, we would only work for like 8 hours a day or something like that. And then we'd be like, what did we even do? What did we do today? And what worked, what didn't work? And he was like, oh, we got it all. It's going to be amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And but he broke each. It was just basically my band, which is a trio, drummer Matt Lanatt and Christopher Hoffey, which plays guitar, bass, keys, all kinds of stuff, and Jay. And a lot of it was just us kind of experimenting in the room and figuring out different things and layering. But yeah, day 4, I walk in and Jay's like, okay, so let me get this straight. You don't have any lyrics and the band doesn't know the song. Okay. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's what we're doing, right? Isn't that what we're doing? And he's like, yeah, I mean, apparently, you know, and then by the end, by like day 7 or 8, I would like the night before write it all out, write the chords, show the band. Like I learned how to work with him and how to try to make it as quick and seamless as I could by the end of the process, which is, you know, my learning curve was like 8 days, you know, 5-6 days where I was like, okay, I got to pull it together. So I got to really write this out and figure out what I'm doing and have the arrangements. But yeah, he's tough. We would argue. I would be like, God, I would be like, you're like my ex-wife. And he'd be like, really? Act like your ex-wife. And I'd be like, I mean, I feel terrible about myself. This isn't what we're supposed to be doing, you know? But then he would build you up. And the thing is, he was always right. Like you would believe in him, you know? And I have a tendency to like go overboard with onomatopoeia and like stuff that I'll be like, okay, I'm going to throw 8 B's at you in a row, you know? And he'd be like, what are you doing? You know? I'd be like, yeah, what am I doing? You're right. What am I doing? You know, it's like,
that's a funny thing making records, because you can get so kind of lost in the middle of it. You know, you said like you record for 8 hours and be like, wait, what did we just do? Like that feeling is like when you get to that midpoint of record, you're like, are we making a complete piece of shit here? Like what is going on? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I sonically had, and he was super guarded, wouldn't play. So you didn't get any, what do you call it? Day tapes or anything that's like you can listen to it
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. None of that ever. Like even when kind of wrote a bridge on the spot, he's like, oh, you need a bridge here. Like something needs to come in. I was like, okay. And so we kind of created one on the spot and I was like, hey, I need to put some words to it. And you guys be like, just make something up, you know, I was like, I don't really like to make things, you know, as perfect as they could be, or like actually saying something, you know? So, and he was like, no. I was like, well, can you send me the song so I can listen to it and get the idea? He's like, oh, you know the chords. I was like, yeah, but I want to just have the freedom to like listen to it and just let my mind go and come up with a cool melody and lyrics. He's like, no. I was like, babe, what do you mean? Like, I need it. And he's like, well, okay. And then he just had the engineer like bring up the song. And he's like, well, you can record just that little part. So you did like 2 seconds before the bridge and then that up until the end of the bridge. And then let me record it real quick on my phone. And then he's like, okay, let's move on then, you know? And he would also do things like physical things, singing wise, which I'd never had heard of, or like he would have me to kind of take my physicality out of things. He would have me sit on a couch, a really low profile couch, and then put a microphone on the floor, like a foot off the ground, and have me bend over and sing between my legs. And so it would just kind of cool it out. And I'm not really singing. I'm kind of just like, it turned out to be way more vibey, which is what he was going for. And I did that on a few songs that lent itself to that when I'm like, what is going on here? You know, we would do stuff that was very kind of innovative, but creative, and would almost part of his process seems to be to get you out of your comfort zone.
Right.
In order to get the best performance for the song, which is unique to him in a way that's like, like in him making you uncomfortable is creating something that has a different emotion than you would have if you were just like, full of confidence. And, a lot of times that you are like, oh no, the producer's there to just build you up and make you feel, grander than you actually are, to get this huge performance out of you. Yeah. And part of his thing, and he would do that at points. At other times, he would do the opposite, which is, and then would get this whole different vibe and different performance that you wouldn't have got without him without kind of breaking you a little bit. It was really, really interesting, and really, really, I understood it at the end, but he would do it to everybody. Like, he'd be like, do you even play guitar? I'd be like, I mean, kind of, or, but he was like, the other guys are more proficient at not that I'm not proficient, but the other guys are really good at their instruments. Yeah. And I'm still very primitive and be like, well, I don't know, like, hey, play the seventh. And I'll be like, well, I wish I knew what that.
At the end of the whole process, once you get everything like mixed and mastered and you're listening back to it, like, are you and Jay and your band and Jay, like, able to like be friends and laugh it off? You know what I mean? Like, are you like, okay, I see what you're doing. That's great.
I mean, he did it even so he mixed it as well. Okay. I didn't hear any rough mixes, anything until I heard the final. So he mixed it, and he even added some slide guitar, which wasn't on there, that we never did. And he made that almost as a kind of a common thread. It keeps popping up within the album that he added during the mixing process. And he took 3 weeks to mix it or a couple weeks to mix it, and then sent me the entire thing. And it was only a few notes that I had was like, oh, let's, he's like, is it too much? I think it's too much. Right. And I was like, nah, fuck it. Let's go for it. Let's do something that's artistically expansive. And, it's like at 47 years old of recording that thing, it's like, let's do something that's a little outside of my comfort zone, and maybe some people's that are aware of me, their comfort zone as well.
I mean, the first thing I thought of when I was listening to it is, how do you go out and recreate it live as a 3-piece?
Yeah, it's been, no, I mean, basically, I think if the songs are there, you're fine, Right.
Like studio and live is live, and these are two different things.
Yeah.
I have to make it exactly the same.
And we've never been a band that's like, when we're not a backing track band, we pride ourselves in doing everything live and not to a click, and to have it be this organic thing. The bass player, who's Christopher Hoffey, also plays guitar. Now he's doing this so he's introduced this guitar bass thing. So it's got a split signal. So he's getting part of it's going to a bass rig. So there's an octaver maybe or something, and part of it goes to a bass rig, so you're not losing the bass. And then he's playing riffs. You can't really play it like a bass. You can't really play it like a guitar. So it's kind of this thing that we're doing some of that. He plays some stuff on keys. There's actually a song that I play keys on. And then there's one that I'm just singing on one, which is a whole different, it felt like just a karaoke act at first. And then I was like, oh, I got to really embrace this, because it's a new visual and a new thing. And I can even feel the crowd go like, what is going on? Like, this is absurd. Man, he's just really feeling himself here.
Yeah. But, that's great. I mean, it sounds like the thing that really comes through, and like everything you're telling me is like, you've been making records for a long time. But it seems like there's a lot of new stuff right now.
For sure. I mean, this album is such a departure in a lot of different ways, but there's still the glue. I mean, initially when I heard the first mix, I was like, whoa, like, this is insane. This is, I mean, I'm used to, it's all like, there was the trappings and the shackles of when I was with this other group. The first label I was with was like, acoustic guitar and your vocal and your songwriting. That's the sound. So everything else is going to come off that. And then I did my album before this last one with Shooter Jennings. He's a piano player, and I was like, I kind of want to abandon that acoustic guitar idea, but still, you're still in that super roots zone with piano, but still it was a different thing to play off vocally, and a little bit different range. just a different palette. But then with this one, it just abandoned all that. And there's synthesizer and there's, and Jay was very meticulous about parts of doing little twists and turns where unexpected things that I wasn't even expecting, which made it, I think, special and unique to this body of work, this piece of art.
So it came out in like November. So where are you at now? Are you just in the middle of a 2-year massive long tour cycle?
Yeah, we're touring right now. We're going out. We're doing leg 3 basically now, where we're going like Midwest, East Coast. But yeah, basically just getting out, playing these songs. We're going to Europe here soon. But I don't know if it's going to be 2 years. We don't tour as hard as some other bands. But yeah, it's basically just getting out there, giving it to the people,
Yeah. Epic. Great. Well, I hope I get to see you live. I've never seen you live. Maybe we'll be out there on the road at the same time at the same festival one of these days. And if not, let's get you back in the water soon.
Let's do it, man.
Drive over the hill and let's go get some waves.
I would love that.
Awesome, man. It's great to finally meet you. And
pleasure to meet you.
I really enjoyed talking to you.
You as well.
Awesome, man. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Resolutions fade. Can't recall what they were. Will they ever even be?
All right, that was Jake Smith, a.k.a. The White Buffalo, right here on Walking the Floor, man. Go check him out. And do not forget, please, get on over to chrisshiflettmusic.com and pre-save my new single coming out February 15th, 2023. It's called Blacktop White Lines. You'll find the link. Save it in your favorite preferred DSP or save it in all of them. And while you're at it, sign up for Shifty's Tackle Shop, the home of all the latest, greatest updates and news. We'll keep you current. That's it for this week, kids. Adios, amigos!